to Enduro 360. I'm your host, Chili White. Today we got something I've been having a lot of fun with, so let me show it to you and tell you a little bit about it. How about 2012 KTM 500 EXC? Now you may have been expecting me to put something up on the XCW because you know I've got that, I've been testing it, I've been racing it, but this bike became available, so we went out and did a real quick test on it. What's the first question everybody asks me? EXC versus XCW. Which bike should I buy? And I gotta tell you, from just a practical riding standpoint, the EXC rides just like the XCW. For dual sport, trail riding, anything short of full race, this is a great riding motorcycle. And with the exception of having a few extra lights hung on it and a few bells and whistles while you're riding it, I really cannot tell the difference between the two bikes. And I've got both of them sitting in the garage, so I've had the opportunity to really do a good back-to-back comparison. So that's pretty cool. That means this thing is a really versatile motorcycle. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of the parts. Some of the stuff we saw before on the 350. Here's those new wheels. Black hubs, silver spoke nipples, black spokes. Looks kind of neat. So far so good. I like those. The kind of dull matte finish on them. They look good. Suspension. You know, on the 350, I was really challenged with just how light the spring rates were in it. Not so much so on the 500. This bike, actually, even for my 200-pound frame, pretty good for trail riding. Even pounding some moderate whoops. No real issues on the suspension. And really the great part about it is this bike rides down the road really well. No wheel hop. No excessive movement or dive front or rear from the suspension. It's a really nice balance for a dual sport bike. Another thing I really like, the exhaust is just super quiet on this bike. I was actually just looking at this, and a lot of these dual sport bikes you expect the exhaust to burn the turn signal back here, but no problem so far. What's really nice is it's great to have a bike that's so quiet riding up and down the road. On the XCW, we have put the FMF full system on there, and yes, there is quite a bit more power to come out of this motor with just the addition of the exhaust. That brings us to the next thing. Down in here, there's a little black box, the ECU. The fuel map program is different than what is in the XCW. But again, to be honest with you, I can tell very little difference in terms of practical riding between the two bikes. The EXC actually just works really well. I guess I should figure out if that Kickstarter works. I haven't had to use it yet. Like all the new bikes, the electric start is just so easy and so effortless. I never even think about it. The 500, one thing that is unique on the 500 is if we talk about the fan here, we've got the thermostat and the fan. Compared to the 450, this thing definitely heats up a little easier than the 450. So every once in a while you will get the fan to come on, but I have yet to actually make the bike boil. And that includes the XCW, which I've raced and had going pretty hot. The fan will come on in a race, but it won't boil. What else? We talked about some of the new things, the handguards. I like those. I do wish they'd stick out just a little bit farther. Grips, those Sprinthal grips always hold up good. All the lighting, so far so good on all the bikes we've tested. It's held up really well. If you remember on the 350, I really complained about the headlight. What we've done on this one, Sick Ass Racing has a direct plug-in 45-watt halogen bulb, so I'm running that in there. That's definitely a nice little upgrade. It's not a huge difference, but it does put out better light than the stock bulb does. Standard thing for any dual sport bike I'm riding, I've got our double take mirror on here. This is such a cool system because it really gives you a usable mirror, but because it sits on that ram mount system, we can adjust it, tuck it out of the way, super easy. And I just love that thing. I run on all my bikes. And let's get some comfort going here. I mean, really, that stock seat is pretty miserable. Here we have the Seat Concepts seat foam and cover. what I did was I got an extra seat from KTM, made one of these up, and now it's just a standard thing that goes on all the bikes I test. Yeah, yesterday I went out, we did some dual sport riding. I put on, oh, I don't know, probably 250 miles yesterday, and what a difference that seat makes. I really, really like it. Fuel mileage on the 500, almost identical to the 350. That is, we're getting anywhere from 40 to 50 miles a gallon. And yesterday I ran the thing because I had some guys I could siphon gas with. I ran it clear out. That was right at 110 miles. And again, that was almost exactly what we were getting out of the 350, about 110 to 120 per tank. Now, one of the things KTM has told me that they've kind of learned about these bikes is they're having a little bit of an issue with, if you overfill the tank, it will splash fuel into the overflow here. But see, this overflow is all connected to the evap system down here. And so it ends up getting fuel into the evap system and the charcoal canister, and that does cause the bike to run a little bit rough. One of the other things that goes along with that is eventually that fuel works its way right here into this little drain hose. And there's a little plug on the end of it. And let's see. What you're supposed to do is every once in a while pull this plug out and drain off any excess fuel in there. Now you can see I didn't have any come out, but the last time I did, there was definitely about half an ounce of fuel in there that came out when I pulled that little plug. So, gearing. This thing comes stock with a 1445. We've got it set up with 1448. And again, that's exactly what I had put on the 350. That was a pretty, I thought was a pretty important setup for the 350 because it was a gear ratio that really gave enough beans to go down the highway pretty good, but wasn't too tall. On the 500, it really kind of brings out the closeness of how close the ratios on the transmission are. Again, on the 350, those close ratios were really good because they helped keep the motor singing along right in its sweet spot. Well, with 500, it's all a big sweet spot. You don't need that. And this thing kind of runs out a little early on top. So for my own setup, I'd probably still go with a little taller overall final drive. But yeah, the 500 kind of shows you how close the transmission ratios are. I almost wish we had like the old EXC where you would just have a big, tall, like highway 6-gear, a big overdrive 6-gear. But this thing would pull, yeah, this thing would pull way more gearing. That also brings up one of the things I really like on this bike is, you know, when we're talking dual sport bike, that means to me it really needs to be able to go down the highway. I mean, let's face it, let's make this bike really work well. Both the 350 and the 500 really kind of excel at that. They go down the highway very smoothly. Look at our 2012 525 EXC. I gotta tell you, I'm just super happy riding this bike. It is so much fun in every situation. It is so ideally suited to its dual purpose trail bike role. Almost maybe even a little better than the XCW is in stock condition. And I think that's partly because we just expect a little more out of the XCW. We want to take it to the racetrack. We want it to feel really a little more race ready. But big thumbs up all the way around on the 500 EXC here.